Power scaling. Two words that elicit a few reactions: debate, apathy, or maybe even dread. Now, debates on which fictional character could beat another one is nothing new under the sun. These are some of the oldest debates in all of pop culture and nerddom. I mean, I really doubt nobody had their playground arguments about which Ninja Turtle was the strongest or could Goku beat Superman and all those other little playground arguments we had as kids. Yet, like all things with the internet, those little debates would soon be held everywhere. Entire communities were built around creating stats and reciting feats of all our beloved characters. Terms would be developed like Planet Buster, Battle IQ, and to some those are common phrases. To others, these are debates that are just annoying. As to where I stand on it, well, I'm kinda somewhere in the middle. I sort of hold the same belief as Stan Lee when it comes to these sort of debates. To quote the man himself, "The person who'd win the fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win." Was that a good impression? I don't know. Now, a lot of people don't really get what that means because most people aren't really writers. This is supposed to mean that whoever wins a fight is based on logic or circumstances presented to the characters. Characters aren't inherently going to win a fight just because people online throw around stats and feats. Instead, the logic of the story has to be kept intact while still making a believable ending. Like, if Naruto just somehow beat Zabuza with a move that we've never seen him use before, without any sort of foreshadowing or training, yeah, that'd feel like a cop-out, right? Yet, despite all these core ideas behind the idea of power scaling, the debate will rage on no matter what you do. And that was taken even further with one little series called Death Battle. A series that presents itself as trying to find the exact answer to who wins a battle based on logic, science, and empirical evidence. To find out who would win a death battle. So, let's take a trip down memory lane and talk about the controversial and bloody world of Death Battle! God, that hurts. Hey, real quick, could you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little bell for me, please? Thank you. Hey, look at me. You like the video? You like my other stuff? Do it. Do it right now. I'm gonna be a little mad at you. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Before we get into any of the major moments, let's talk about the history and development of Death Battle. And maybe my personal connection to it too. Death Battle was created by Ben Singer, who's the voice of the character Wiz and is also the co-owner of the series. He created the series when he was working with Screw Attack, which was a massive entertainment company on the internet. Of course, Ben Singer plays the host of the show, Wiz, and he'd be joined by co-star and co-owner of the series, Chad James as Boomstick. Of course, the series is actually owned by 4 co-owners, the other 2 being Sam Mitchell and Austin Harper, but they make almost 0 appearances related to the series in public, whereas Ben and Chad are more or less the face of the series inside and out. Anyways, now onto the full story of the history of the series. Death Battle was started in a weird period of time where YouTube was a big deal, but a lot of creators would also post stuff on other sites and places, and Screw Attack was one of these large entities, posting a lot of things in series on their channel and as well on their personal website. And trust me, they were a big deal back then. They worked with a ton of affiliate creators such as the Angry Video Game Nerd, Game Theory, The Completionist, Peanut Butter Gamer, Black Nerd Comedy, Brennel Floss. Holy shit, that's at least like 50% of my childhood. If they had like JonTron, Raka Raka, Kadikarus, or Smosh, they'd pretty much have like the complete set of my childhood on the internet. Yet, as we all know, the biggest homegrown series at Screw Attack would be Death Battle, which debuted with Boba Fett vs Samus Aran on December 6, 2010. Which, that actually makes sense since, you know, their whole logo's inspired by Metroid. The series was made in part with a now defunct company called Revision 3, which would distribute the series on their website, basically working as a sponsor for their work, though after a bit they'd end the relationship and work fully with Screw Attack. The series stayed independent for some years, before being bought out by Fullscreen alongside Rooster Teeth. This was insane because these were basically 2 of the biggest independent YouTube entertainment companies on the block under now one roof. Before Glitch Animation's incredible work in the indie space, Rooster Teeth and Screw Attack were pretty much the big dogs, and well, now they were kind of together. Thus, this led into a sort of second era of the series with a new logo, higher budget, and so on. A lot of changes were happening, but of course they couldn't just drop Death Battle. It also helped that the 2 studios actually worked with each other before, featuring characters from RWBY, as in RWBY, and Red vs. Blue pretty often. Yet eventually that would change when, of all people, Warner Brothers would come in and buy them out. Things stayed a bit shifty for a bit, but Warner kept them around for a little while. And then of course their big corporate overlord shut everything down and decided to end Rooster Teeth. They were kept in the dark, but somehow the people behind the series found a way to buy their IP and get their channel back. And that's where we are now. Death Battle being a fully independent series made by people who care and even bringing in a lot of guest animators to the series. To be honest, it's one of the rare internet series that has stuck around. It's crazier to think about it too, because it's not exactly an internet series that's focused around one central character. Like, the AVGN and Nostalgia Critic are still around because you have a central, recognizable character to set things around. Whereas Death Battle's not that. Think something like Jim Ross or Jerry the King Lawler for my wrestling heads who may be watching. Sure, they're beloved, but I doubt you turned on an episode of WWE Raw or SmackDown to see the commentators. Yeah, they're super important, but they're not the main draw. Death Battle is sort of a beautiful anomaly of pop culture. I kinda respect it. But with that out of the way, let's get into the meat potatoes of this video. In my notes, I have sort of 3 separate eras of Death Battle. Time periods, I think, where you can either see a change in production or a feeling in the series, as well as my personal time with the series is also taken into account, obviously. The first era I've called the OG era. Those first 5-ish years where they were still finding their footing and creating the style of the series. Then there's the logo era where they got a higher budget and had some of the bigger backing when mixed with Rooster Teeth. And finally, what I'll call the newish era. The most recent stuff they've been making for the past 5 to 6 years. Within these eras, I've picked videos of either iconic, or just special to me personally, or just stuff I thought would be fun to watch. So if you don't see the Death Battle you loved or remember watching the most, that's why. It's not that I'm being mean or forgetful, it's more so I don't want to watch like over 100 videos back to back to back and then form a lump in my skull. With each battle I'll cover, I'll give it a rating out of 5 just to kind of give you how I'm feeling about it. What I'm considering when ranking each episode is the battle itself, their logic behind everything and who should win, and the overall presentation. Basically, does everything make sense? Was there an inherent bias? The whole 9 yards. Of course, I'll obviously keep in mind when each video was made because YouTube animation in 2010 is nowhere near where it is in 2026. So, without further ado, it's time for a death battle! The OG era. I'd say this is the era where I watched the most Death Battle. Those first 7-ish years where they were mostly just a screw attack thing. The animation style was usually old school pixel art stuff, though occasionally you'd get some decent 3D for the time. But honestly, I've already done the episode's history and all that, so let's just hop right in with... We gotta start with the very first one, right? Also, this feels oddly intentional being the first one. I mean, Screw Attack's name comes straight from the Metroid series. Not gonna lie, this was kinda nice to go back and watch. I used to watch this one a ton as a kid. Maybe because I like Star Wars and Metroid Prime a ton as a kid, but man, this really feels like that peak 2010s, late 2000s type of animation. The mic quality is a bit funky, the audio mixing's all over the board, and the animation is basically that kind of sprite animation you'd find all over YouTube or Newgrounds. I mean, it's no Super Mario Bros. Z or Final Fantasy Sonic X, but it's not bad either. I will say though, Ben and Chad have a ton more energy than they usually have for these things. Like, it feels more like 2 friends just yapping excitedly about crazy stuff from fiction and the science behind it. Kinda fuck with it, honestly. Even if it's a bit uncanny to not hear Chad put on his redneck type voice for Boomstick. If it is there, I didn't notice it. It's gotta be subtle or something. There's also some odd things I noticed here that never really come back. For example, the health bars they have during the fight. I'm pretty sure they drop that really fast, and I get why. You don't want to force a certain pacing within your fights. You want to let them grow out and flow naturally. But overall, this was fun and charming, and for 2010, I completely get why this took off. 4 out of 5. I remember this one making me mad as a kid, and I completely misremembered how this went. For some reason, my dumbass thought Darth Vader won this one, but he didn't. And let's be fair, this is not a fair fight. Dr. Doom wipes Darth Vader easily. It's not that I have a bias here, I love both characters. Debatably, they're both the best villains in all of fiction. But Doom has done much crazier stuff than Darth Vader. It's just a fact. I was absolutely obsessed with Star Wars and Marvel Comics as a kid, so for some reason I thought that Vader won, and he didn't, so... my bad, Death Battle? Though, if I may say real quick, using the Force Unleashed for canon is a bit weird. Even when it was made, the official series kinda sort of treated this one like an AU of sorts. Plus, comparing the feats of Starkiller, aka Galen Merrick, is a bit weird when you compare them to Vader. So, their logic doesn't really click for me here as a big Star Wars guy. Like, Vader had done some really crazy stuff in the original Star Wars canon, but they're also kind of being a bit flippy-floppy with what they're using, because some things were objectively not canon and some things were loosely canon. It's a bit weird. Overall, I'll give this a 3 out of 5. Let's be real, this is another fight that's absolutely a landslide. Not saying that Ryu doesn't have any insane feats or anything, but Scorpion's an immortal demon, so yeah. I will say this fight is really good actually. It's super well done. Though, I was kind of annoyed that they basically compared Street Fighter's story to Star Wars. Like, come on guys, these are universal themes. Ryu being tempted into his dark side is not a uniquely Star Wars trait. However, they did also do some solid research here. I especially like that they used the PS2 Mortal Kombat games to reference Scorpion's official martial arts styles. And again, the animation is just some peak classic pixel animation. There's some really good camera work here and choreography and more. Great stuff, even if this is just inherently an imbalanced matchup. 4 out of 5. This is another solid early death battle. I loved Strider as a kid, and I thought Ninja Gaiden was cool too. I'd not played it at this point when I originally watched it. I've played it now, obviously. But I originally knew it from AVGN and then started playing it on emulator and stuff, and it's actually a really good game. You should try it. But let's be real, we all kind of knew Strider was winning this one, right? There's really not much to say here. It's a pretty average death battle. Nothing bad, nothing inherently great. 3 out of 5. Okay, I was super excited for this one as a kid. The PS2 was one of the most important things to me as a child, and thus, Jak and Daxter and Ratchet & Clank were some of my earliest platformer memories, as well as Sonic Mega Collection, Lego Star Wars, the Mega Man Collection, and so on. So seeing these two set up for a fight made me pretty hyped. Though, this is an interesting matchup since these two characters have completely different styles of combat. Ratchet is super reliant on his gigantic, deep, wet arsenal, and Jak mostly relies on his eco powers and a decent selection of guns. Though, there were really many ways they could have handled this, but I also think it's obvious Ratchet would win this, right? I mean, by the time this was out, Ratchet had some insane weaponry like black hole generators and other shit like that, so yeah. I'm not gonna lie either, this fight kind of feels a bit lackluster. The characters feel oddly flattened or out of character, and everything just feels a bit stiff. I'm gonna be real, this one was kind of disappointing. 2 out of 5. Another thing I was really into as a kid was Godzilla. Don't take a drink whenever I mention something I was into as a kid. I was into a lot of things as a kid, okay? I would try to catch Godzilla movies on the TV when they would play, or just rent them from the library. Gamera, though, was something I heard about and hadn't really interacted with as a kid. I eventually did watch the Gamera trilogy, and those movies are really good. Honestly, just seeing Godzilla in death battle in any capacity was exciting to me. And I already have a problem. They don't exactly make it clear which version of Goji they're using. Are we using the Showa era, the Heisei era? To me, you need to be more specific on these kinds of things because there are different eras of Goji doing incredibly different things. The same thing applies to Gamera as well. So there's already a point being taken off, and then we get to the fight and it just feels odd. Like the kaiju are moving too precisely and too fast. Kaijus need to feel heavy, like there's a ton of weight to them. And here, it feels like their 3D models are moving from one keyframe to another. Maybe since they're used to animating in one style, it was kind of hard to shift over to something that feels more organic to a kaiju film? I don't know, but something just feels off about how Godzilla and Gamera are moving. 2 out of 5. This is the last one I'm covering from this era, and I really felt like covering it. And look, straight up, this may be one of the best death battles they've ever produced. It helps that Sam and Snake are more grounded characters than they're usually dealing with, but they do some solid research here and even look into the guns they're using. Plus, dog. The animation here is peak. Good camera work, stylized action, laying in references to both series pretty flawlessly. Maybe it's my bias to Metal Gear and my slight bias to Splinter Cell informing this, but I don't care. They were working on a whole other level when working on this one. My only nitpick is, and this is a nitpick where a lot of things feature Snake outside of Metal Gear, it's not just a death battle thing, but why does Snake have a beard? Solid Snake has never had a beard. Big Boss had a beard. And before you say, well, what about Twin Snakes on the GameCube? That's not canon. How do I know this? Because MGS4 explicitly uses the PS1 MGS1 to reference the past. And look, no beard. It's just a weird thing I've noticed everywhere that when Snake features as a guest character or features in something he's not usually a part of, they always give him a beard, but he never had one, Big Boss did. And this is an intentional choice on Kojima too to not give Snake a beard. It's to make him look more distinct from Big Boss. But I don't know, this is just a nitpick and it's not really going to change anything. I'm just a big Metal Gear fan. It's still not going to stop me though from giving this a 5 out of 5. So yeah, this era definitely had its ups and downs, and it definitely struggled at making matchups that were balanced. However, there's a clear passion here. It's generally solid, though it stumbles over itself a little bit when keeping to a specific character's continuity. But let's get on to the next era, shall we? Wait, what's that?
Bonus Battle Royale round!
So, occasionally, I'll place in a
Bonus Battle Royale round!
at the end of an era if they did a Battle Royale type episode that I think is worth mentioning. So, what's on the menu today? Oh, I remember this one, the TMNT Battle Royale. For reasons, this is one of the only videos they've ever taken off the Death Battle YouTube channel. I actually have zero idea why. But it was sort of common back then for channels to take down videos if they got a ton of hate. It happened to Mike Matei a few times when he took over the AVGN for a bit. After some research, I've learned that this is actually taken down to copyright. Why? This is pretty much free use, but whatever, I guess. Corpos are going to be corpos. Let's be real, I think everyone has at least thought once who would be the strongest turtle amongst the four of them. Though if I'm going to be real, I think this one is going to be obvious. I kind of wish, as per usual, they stuck to one specific continuity, but it seems like early Death Battle almost never does this, so I guess I can't complain. Honestly, watching all the turtles kill each other so senselessly kind of fucked me up a little bit, I don't know. Like, they're supposed to be brothers, but they're just going wild on each other. Man, it makes me feel oddly sad? Maybe I'm a weirdo, but that's just how it feels, I don't know. Also, I'm sorry, but having Raph scream damn at the top of his lungs as he dies is too funny to me, especially since from where he was hit, he wouldn't be able to scream anyway, he would just be gasping for air. And look, Leonardo's the obvious winner here. We all know this, right? This is not even like a hard one to debate. 4 out of 5. New logo era. This one is gonna be a bit tricky for me. You see, this is when I stopped watching the series as much. I still hopped in from time to time when I found something that interested me, but I was getting old and my internet habits were shifting. Instead, I was watching more Oni plays and more video essays like Super Eye Patch Wolf. It's kind of where I started to slip away and honestly not care as much about these debates. But maybe this is also when I started to encounter the really annoying type of power scalers who see everything in terms of feats, stats, or skills instead of characters with unique ideas and concepts behind them, but whatever. But I don't know. Let's just take a look into it and see how I feel. Maybe it'll turn me around. You know, I'm thinking I remember why I stopped watching this, because this one fucking sucks. I mean, I hate this one. This is when they started doing the whole characters can sense things like battle aura type of bullshit. They do this in other battles, and I'll be honest, it's kind of dumb. I could imagine that characters could feasibly sense things like chi, ki, or fighting aura, but that's not sight. I'm sorry, but there is no feasible way that Kenshiro would be able to react to Star Platinum when it is hard confirmed it can punch at the speed of light and can stop time. I'm not even saying Kenshiro has no feasible way of winning, but not like this death battle. Plus, I'm not even trying to be mean, but the animation looks genuinely really funky. Sometimes they're using these sprites that seem like they're made in-house, but other times they're using sprites from each character's respective games, and then sometimes they're just mixing them around in a way that looks really weird. Like, they keep constantly swapping back and forth between one style and another, and I'm sorry, it looks obvious and it kind of throws me out of it. It's ruining my immersion, it's not making me want to watch. 1 out of 5, fuck this episode, it sucks. Ryu vs. Jin. I do remember being excited for this one. As you all probably know by now, I fucking love Tekken. I mean, I made like a few videos on it if you want to go watch those. And I do also appreciate Street Fighter a ton too, I just haven't made a video on that yet because I don't know what to say. But I do know, this episode felt kind of meh to me. I feel like there was a lot more you could have done with this matchup, but it sort of ends like I would expect it to. Literally, I predicted it all beat for beat. I mean, at least it's not as much a landslide as Ryu vs. Scorpion, but it's not exactly anything special either. Honestly, it kind of sucks that I didn't have any reaction at all because I like both of these characters a lot, so inherently I should have a reaction, but I kind of didn't. 3 out of 5. Naruto vs. Ichigo. Remember when I said I was pissed off at how they said Kenshiro could somehow sense and therefore react accurately to Star Platinum? Well, this episode has the same bullshit logic, but it's better. Yeah, I said it. They've done better research here in my opinion, and they've done a much better fight. They seem to have a much deeper look at how each system works. I mean, they seem to at least try to learn all the words of Bleach and Naruto. Plus, they seem to use things that are actually shown to us in each manga. I still think their whole logic on Naruto being able to accurately react to Ichigo's Shinigami form is kinda dumb, but it seems like they're really into this idea. I guess to be fair, they need a reason as to how these two would even fight, but honestly, if they said, we're not taking that into account and just going to assume there's a way for them to interact, I just prefer that much more, to be honest. The pixel art here is much better, and they integrate the close-up shots and different sprites in a way that feels way more natural. Plus, the voices are not bad, and each character feels accurate to the show. I still think the whole Naruto consents Reishi thing is dumb, but the fight is good and ends on a pretty good note, I guess. I'd say this is a 3.5 out of 5. Oh, hell yeah. I love these series. Marvel 2099 is goated, and I made a video on that, you should go watch it. And Batman Beyond is the second best Batman, period. Maybe even the best, I don't know. Though, I'm sad to say this episode isn't really anything special. The research is fine, and the fight is pretty standard. I kinda wish the fight didn't end in such an anticlimactic way. Terry just blows up Miguel. There wasn't anything that was a bit more clever. I don't want to be mean, but I also don't think the voice they have for Miguel O'Hara fits at all. I honestly think the best voice for the character is what Christopher Daniel Barnes did in Spider-Man Edge of Time, which that game also has the best Peter Parker voice actor, Josh Keaton. Yeah, I said that. I think Josh Keaton's the best. Overall, though, this episode is like a 3 out of 5. Nothing crazy. I hadn't seen this episode at all before watching episodes for this video. I just clicked on it because I'm gonna be honest, it sounded kind of dumb. I like Teen Titans, and I've seen like 2 episodes of MLP in passing. I just found the idea of this matchup, to be honest, just be like a little funny. However, it's just fine. There's nothing that's nowhere near as dumb as funny as I thought it would be. 2 out of 5. So, yeah, I kind of get why I stopped watching around this time. It kind of feels like, to an extent, like this era is kind of just going through the motions. Plus, some of the logic and fights in this era are a bit lackluster. Maybe I just chose a weird batch of episodes, but I feel almost nothing about this era at all. I guess we'll... Oh my god!
Battle Royale round!
Another Battle Royale round? Okay, what is it? Oh wait, a Mega Man Battle Royale? Wait, that actually sounds really fun. What the hell? I loved Mega Man a lot as a kid, and kinda like the TMNT one before it, why not have a battle between all the Mega Men? They're similar yet different enough from each other to make an interesting battle, and they do a lot of cool stuff here. The sprite animation's really solid, and they went all in on it, and they did a lot of good research. Though, I'll be honest, I predicted the winner of this video before I even opened it. Well, my 2 bets were either X or Mega Man EXE. Safe to say, I was correct. Doesn't mean it makes it a bad episode, though. It was a fun time and didn't make me feel as sad as the TMNT one. I don't know, that one just made me weird, but this one is nowhere near as mean it feels. I don't know. 4 out of 5. The new-ish era. This is pretty much everything from about 5 years ago to now. Basically anything from 2020 and onwards. I don't really know what I'm gonna say about this era. I think there's only about like 3 videos I remember. One I hated, absolutely, and the other 2 I thought were actually pretty cool. Well, there is that one recent one, but we'll talk about that later. They've also introduced literal visual representations of the character's whiz and boobstick now, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care for it. I don't want to be mean, but I kind of prefer them as disembodied voices. Maybe it's because I also like the idea of whiz and boomstick's interpretations being left up to the imagination. I guess it doesn't ruin anything about the core concept of death battle, but man, it just feels weird to cut the whiz and boomstick in animated form. Maybe I'm just an old head, but I don't think I'm ever gonna get used to this. Enough talk though, let's just get into it. This, in my opinion, is the worst death battle. Worst researched, biggest cop-out ending. I like Green Lantern and Ben 10 a ton. I think there's actually quite a few ways that Hal Jordan Green Lantern could feasibly win. But come on, he cuts off Ben's arm after going through time. Which, can I say this real quick? The Omnitrix would just grow him a new arm. I fucking hate this episode. I guess the animation is good, but it literally just feels like they downplayed Ben's strengths a ton. I mean, why even make him Child Ben in the first place when Omniverse Ben is literally his peak? What happened to taking characters at their strongest to battle? Definitely doesn't fucking feel like it. Fuck this video, piss me off, kiss my ass, slurp my shit. You're getting a 0, a fat fucking goose egg. This one sounds like it might be crazy. I mean, Wally West and Archie Sonic are insanely overpowered characters. Debatably some of the most overpowered, if we're not considering gag characters. I was super impressed by the sprite animation here. They've really upgraded everything about this style. The camera work is much better, and they seem to be spending more time and money into making new assets. I mean, there's one moment here where Wally appears in this sort of hallway of time, and it's literally just there for like a few moments. Overall, I'd say this is a vast improvement in comparison to the previous one I watched, and they really seem to not be too biased towards one character over the other. They get their moments and even address that Archie Sonic is incredibly powerful, but Wally just had the right tools to counter his strongest abilities. 4 out of 5. I do remember checking this one out back in the day. I loved and still love Naruto and Star Wars a ton. Thus, taking two characters that are pretty much the coolest from both worlds and having them fight just made me interested. Plus, they come from drastically different worlds and ideas, and I think the clash in style would actually be interesting. I'ma be real, this one was really good. I mean it. Their logic is pretty consistent, the battle felt nice and even, plus they found a ton of ways to incorporate lines from the prequels in the Naruto series into the fight, but still keeping it feeling natural. They even come up with a decent reason for why they would even fight. Obi-Wan crashes his ship into Konoha territory, thus Kakashi asks him to leave, and this obviously leads into a fight. Seems like someone on the staff was taking heavy notes from the Solid Snake and Sam Fisher fight, because this feels like the perfect evolution of everything that one presented, animation-wise. The camera work is very clever, good moments of pause, and there's just good moments all around. Every hit felt super impactful and had some effort put into it. To mention their reasoning, it's not even bad. Not saying chakra and jutsus are not powerful, but the Force has many abilities that can allow Jedis to keep up with a ninja. Plus, the Sharingan not being able to work in the Force because it's an external power source and not internal is actually pretty clever. I mean, the Sharingan looks to see chakra, but it probably wouldn't be looking for Obi-Wan channeling an outside presence. Good ass episode, 5 out of 5. This is one of the few I hadn't watched before making this video, and truth be told, I only clicked at it because it sounded absurd. I was a massive sucker for Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid. I played the cards all the time. I rewatched Duel Monsters, GX, and 5Ds on repeat. Not really Zexal though, I love XE's cards and all that, but that series didn't really click with me as much as the other three. Of course, I wasn't as into Pokemon as other kids, but I still enjoyed it. I watched the movies quite often, the first and third ones are the best. Watched reruns of Indigo League, and still adore Pokemon Snap to this day. Honestly, I just didn't have a way to play any of the Pokemon games because no one ever gave me one and they're always so expensive, so I just never had one. So, placing these two characters within a battle with completely different styles of monsters they collected intrigued me a ton. And dog, they blew this out of the atmosphere. I don't know what sauce they've been cooking with since going indie, but please keep this up. There were so many clever ways they included monsters and iconic moments from each series. Also, each voice actor sounded perfect. Like, I actually had to Google if they were the original voice actors. They weren't, but the fact that I even had to says a lot. Man, I'm not gonna lie. This one made me feel things, man. As a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! And honestly, it made me realize that I have more attachment to Pokemon than I thought I did. The logic of who wins isn't even that bad either. I mean, I think we all know Yugi would win this, but the way they explained it wasn't too terrible either. It just makes sense. 5 out of 5. And here we come to the most recent one I watched. The one that actually made me want to go back and retrospect on the series itself. Cell vs. Metal Sonic. This one is in the same boat as Yugi vs. Ash. I don't know what's going on under the Death Battle roof, but keep doing it. The animation here might be the best I've seen from the series ever. The way they weave in ideas and references to DBZ, DBZ Abridged, Sonic Heroes, the Sonic comics, look, it's all glorious. Hell, I'd even argue this feels like an episode of a high-budget animated series. It looks that good. The camera work, the voice acting, the music, the respect for the source material, just everything here feels like a labor of love. Dog, if this is what Death Battle is now, then I'm glad it's still around. 5 out of 5. And yep, that's all I gotta say. Yep, nothing at all. I'm just playing with you. Did you really think I'd leave behind some of Death Battle's most important multi-part series? The recurring battles at their most iconic, controversial, and beloved? Let's get into some of Death Battle's most iconic two-parters and eventually talk about the big trilogy. Mario vs. Sonic. Honestly, I'm gonna keep this one quick. Pun. But seriously, I don't like either of these much. Like, at all. I don't want to bash too hard since the first one was made over 14 years ago. Holy shit, time flies. But the first one here is some early Death Battle weirdness. Using weird examples to base their character stats on, not being clear about which continuities they're using, etc, etc. And the fight itself is just a bit underwhelming. It feels a bit flat in comparison to their other early vids like Borba vs. Samus. I'm gonna be honest, the first round, getting a 2 out of 5. The second round, though, is also kind of weird. First of all, it's their 100th episode, thus they brought this back for a special occasion. Yet they continue to use weird examples, and honestly, I don't know what exactly this animation style is for this fight at all. Like, it's not bad, but it also feels wrong. It doesn't feel like it'd be animated for a fight. It feels something closer to, like, I don't know, like a sitcom series animation you'd find on, like, Netflix or something. It doesn't really fit the vibe at all of Death Battle. I'm gonna be real, this just feels like a weird special. 2 out of 5. Cloud versus Link. Round 1. This was a massive episode for me as a kid. I grew up in a home that was both a PlayStation and Nintendo household. Usually you'd have one of the big 3 companies back then, but I had a PS2, a Wii, which I really just use as a GameCube, and a hand-me-down GBA. So I didn't really have a strong attachment to one or the other company. So I really had a strong attachment to both Nintendo and PlayStation. And it also helped that I was a mega fan of Final Fantasy VII. To me, it was possibly the coolest game ever made. I mean, sure, when I was like 10 years old, there were things like Black Ops 2, but FF7 was the kind of stuff I was really into. I also liked the Zelda games. I played a ton, when I was allowed to borrow them from other family members, of course. I didn't own any Zelda games myself till I bought Ocarina of Time on my 3DS, and then eventually we got other ones. But I remember many days of borrowing Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and the Master Collection when I was a kid. This video was basically crafted for my rotted 12-year-old brain. Though, I'll be real, I wanted Cloud to win badly because... I mean, come on, we can all agree that Cloud was cooler than Link, right? No? No? I mean, I think any kid would have thought that. Honestly, this is a solid episode. The 3D for 2012 is really good, surprisingly. There's definitely someone who worked on this fight that knows how to frame a shot and how to make every hit feel climactic. I know it's just some basic swingy animations, but they've given so much rumble and shifts to the camera that it feels like the coolest thing ever. Though I will admit this sort of standardized inventory thing is a bit weird, but I guess it makes sense. Link is different between each game, but there's a lot of overlap between what's in his inventory, and Cloud is literally the same character across every game, so yeah, I guess it's fair. I kind of wish they let them do their crazier stuff and use more of their stronger equipment, but it's also 2012 and they have a budget. Maybe it's nostalgia talking, but this is a 4 out of 5. Round 2. Okay, so you know when I said I wanted to do more crazy stuff with each character's inventory? This is what I meant. Oh my god, dude, this fight is so good. Smooth as hell. And just brings in anything you'd want to see. I know a lot of these fights are pretty much fan service galore, but I mean, it's just fun, man. I don't see the harm. I'm also glad they did mention that they aren't using certain games for reference like Hyrule Warriors or Dissidia. The transparency is appreciated a ton by me. Man, this one's getting a 5 out of 5. It's super good, arguably better than the last one. I mean, like, come on, man, it's just great. If you like Zelda, Final Fantasy, or both, you'll find something to enjoy out of this. But there's one more I have to talk about. The big one. The series where they pitted 2 of the most beloved characters of all time in fiction against one another. Superman versus Goku. The one where everyone has their guy and they want their specific guy to win. And then you have me. I think if you've watched my channel for a bit, you know I love Superman. I mean, I did make like 3 videos on it. But Dragon Ball Z Kai was a massive part of my childhood too. I'd wake up every morning to watch Dragon Ball Z Kai on the TV. Even if it was a rerun. It was the perfect show for my child mind. And then I'd go to the library and rent some of the Dragon Ball manga and a ton of Superman comics. So for me as a kid, I had no bias going into this. I loved both characters. I remember distinctly when my brother and I first discovered this video. We were out late with our mom. I think she was helping a friend move into a new house. My little one brother and I sat in the back of our van, the light on, darkness surrounding the car like a blanket. We sat there, a bit bored like a child would, and yet just this one time, my mom said, "Hey, you can use my phone, watch some YouTube." Only if it's appropriate to watch, of course. And of course I, as probably an 11-year-old, searched up Cloud versus Link. I don't remember why I did. I think my little brother and I were talking about it when we stumbled across Death Battle. We watched it and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then we saw the next recommended video, Goku versus Superman. We quite literally looked at each other, mouths agape in astonishment. Goku versus Superman? What would even happen? They're both so strong. It'd be the end of the world pretty much. And thus, we watched. Round 1. You know, looking back in this video, it has a lot of problems. For one, like usual with early Death Battle, they're a bit too vague for their own good. All they say is, we'll be using modern Superman. Okay, what's modern Superman? Pre-Crisis, Silver Age, New 52? Look, I know this is a little annoying, but it kinda is needed for when you're talking about comic book characters. It really wasn't much of an issue with Goku at the time since, well, all we had was Dragon Ball OG, Z, and then GT. And I'ma keep it a buck, the characters are way off. For one, Goku would not just challenge Superman and fight him in a city. He's literally taken a fight to a deserted area so that he can go full strength. There is one good moment where Goku destroys the kryptonite because, well, that's what Goku would do. But other than that, Goku feels way too antagonistic. The voices they have for each character are a bit 50-50. I'm glad they used Masako X for their Goku voice because DBZ Abridged is pretty much a cornerstone of the American Dragon Ball fandom. But the Superman voice, I don't like it. The mic quality is bad, but that's not really why I dislike it. It's just too stereotypically deep and manly. Like, yeah, Superman is a strong masculine person, but this sounds too close to Super Friends and not how the character has been portrayed since the DCAU.
He sort of talks like this. Haha, Goku!
I don't think we all really want that out of our Superman nowadays. I think we can all agree that George Newbern and Tim Daly are pretty much the voices of Superman, though Jack Quaid does play a very good young Superman in his series. Anyways, their Superman just sounds like it's a bit too goofy and too serious all at once. Honestly, I agree that Superman would win in this specific scenario, but I don't care for how they got their answer. It's the sort of concept where you can get the right answer from the wrong process. That describes this episode perfectly. 3 out of 5. Round 2. Honestly, I remember really disliking this episode when it first came out. Let me explain. For one, this episode has a weird sense of, how would I describe it? Head up its own acidness. It spends most of its time talking about where this debate even originally came from, but postures it in a way like Death Battle has the definitive answer. Is this old internet rage bait? Because this sort of we know better type presentation is actually kind of frustrating to me. They also spend way less time discussing the science and lore behind each character, which is actually part of the series I really like. And it's frustrating since both series at this time were deep into their reboots. Dragon Ball was fresh off the heat that was Battle of Gods, and the lukewarm puddle of pee that's Resurrection F. And Superman was already years into the New 52 reboot. They address this directly at the start and then barely go into it. They sort of implied that the Superman they're using is meant to be the New 52 version of Superman, which is debatably one of the weaker versions, but they also don't say this definitively, so call me stupid, I'm just gonna assume that they meant New 52 Clark. And what pisses me off the most is that Super Saiyan Blue Goku would wipe the floor with New 52 Superman. I mean it. This was way before DC did all the stuff with Rebirth and All In. So I just don't get it. In this scenario, it actually would be Goku who would be winning, right? Like, am I tweaking for this? Like, there's something I'm not remembering? Because I think I'm right in this scenario. After that, they do this whole dumb bit where King Kai lectures Goku about how, philosophically, he can't beat Superman. I'm sorry, man. This feels really backhanded. It just feels like this weird moment of being backhanded and, oh yes, well, this is why we're right and you're dumb for thinking otherwise. Like, I don't know, there's just this weird vibe to it. It's like having the character address the audience as stupid, and not just having yourself explain your reasoning behind it. I don't know, there's just this weird rage baity feeling against it. Like, I don't know, it's honestly really annoying me. This video, like, actively annoyed the hell out of me. The thing is, there's a kernel of a great idea here, but you told it in the most annoying, bitch-ass, pedantic, pseudo-intellectual way you could have made it. Yeah, I agree. Superman is meant to be the man who can match any challenge, the man with all the power who uses it for all the good, whereas Goku is meant to be the one searching for a new challenge. Thus, writing-wise, Goku beating Superman defeats the purpose of the character, therefore it shouldn't happen. But it happens in the most contrived way feasible, and both characters act like massive a-holes about it. If I'm being real, I actually think these two would at least be friends, or, I don't know, at least try to find a way to get along. Goku and Superman are not bad dudes at all. I don't know, I'm gonna be real, this was terrible. This was actually terrible. 1 out of 5. Round 3. So, I know I basically hulked out on that last video, but believe when I say this video was everything the last one should have been. For one, it's actually good, but two, it actually feels like they really tried this third time around. It really feels like they wanted to put in a pure, genuine effort this time around to close this chapter, or at least close it to the best of their ability. Right away, the two are fighting in a secluded area. Okay, that's in character for them, check. Goku and Clark are respecting one another, Goku making it a friendly challenge, okay. Super in character for Goku, check. Clark shows that he's having fun not holding back, but also feels a bit sad when unneeded destruction is caused from his power. Okay, that's pretty much Clark in a nutshell. Check. I swear, it's like they realized how weird these characters were written in the last two and decided to fix that. Plus, the animation is just so much better. But to be fair, this came out in like 2022, so that's a given. Yet, Down to the research section, they even address that they'll be using multiple continuities for reference points for both characters. Thank you! Plus, just being apparent that they're using many eras of Superman's history is a good thing. It allows us to understand how they're thinking. They really go in on many aspects of the characters in their research, talking about their real-world creation, science, and many more. It's showing some great effort here. They even acknowledge that there are attributes Goku has over Superman, like reaction time and more martial arts experience. It's safe to say they finally stuck the landing, finally making a great Goku vs. Superman video. They even add on why, philosophically, Goku cannot beat Superman, which I kind of agree, but it seems to come from a genuine place of understanding, and is told to us by the characters Boomstick and Wiz, and not just weirdly spouted by King Kai. They even try to turn the spotlight on themselves and criticize some of their own thinking around why they even do what they do. They even address that, to many, this battle is deeply personal for so many reasons. And they're completely right. To some people, the Superman vs. Goku debate is much more about which style, idea, or experience is better. Of course, I don't want it to be that way, because there's room for both Superman and Goku in our world. And at the end of the day, power scaling is just for fun. Power scaling is fun for a little conversation, but stories and culture are something much deeper, more complicated and human. Thus, that is why I think shows like Death Battle are important. Videos like these allowed me to see all sorts of things in a whole new light, and introduced me to things I would have never seen before. Sure, I don't always agree with what they think or their takes, and sometimes I think they are pretty biased, but that doesn't make any of these discussions any less fun or make them stupid or pointless. It's just people talking about cool things they like. And really, what's the harm in that? Thank you, Death Battle, for making some real special experiences. I mean it. 5 out of 5. So, at the end of it all, what have we learned? Well, I've learned that Death Battle feels like this ever-present, dependable pillar of the internet. Something that somehow has stayed around and stayed relevant since the 2010s. And it's clearly done this not through rage bait or clickbait or whatever, but through genuine passion. Sure, we're never going to agree with their takes all the time, but that's sort of the point. Honestly, I find their story oddly inspiring. I mean, they went from being a part of Screw Attack to Rooster Teeth to Warner Brothers, to then being completely independent. Can you name any other series that's done that? I don't think so. Death Battle made me look at things in a critical, scientific lens. Maybe it wasn't always perfect, and maybe the logic didn't always click, but that intent was always felt. I'm not ashamed to admit that this series was pretty fundamental to me as a child. It showed me many things I would have never dreamed of. And it even taught me a little bit of science too, if I'm being real. It felt like, to some extent, I was being introduced to a much larger world than I had ever seen before. And when I sit back and look at it, I wouldn't change a thing. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. This is a longer video that I've been working on for quite a bit, and if you actually have been watching my channel for a while, if you have, hey, I'm glad you're actually coming back to videos. It seems like no one does that anymore. But expect some longer videos now, since I have a bit more free time than I usually do. So I hope you appreciate that. And what was your favorite Death Battle, if you had any, or do you just hate the series? If that's the case, just let me know in the comments below. And hey, let's start up a fun conversation about it, I think we can have some very nice conversations that are at least civil about it, right? But with all that being said, I'll see you next time.